Hello and thank you for tuning in. Today on My Consultants, a new deal between Canada and India grants unlimited weekly flights. Next, the growing concern of rich countries, including Canada, recruitment of overseas nurses, followed by the new low CRS Score. Stay with us as I break down the new Nexus short-term measures, and Tina will tell us everything we need to expect if your international company transfers you to work in Canada.
Canada has recently announced unlimited weekly flights deal with India. The federal government has announced a new deal with India that will allow designated airlines to operate unlimited number of flights between two countries. This is a significant improvement from the previous agreement that limited each country to just 35 flights per week. According to latest report by Statistics Canada, India is the biggest source of immigrants in Canada. Almost 1 in 5 recent immigrants in Canada were born in India. That is equivalent to 18.6%. Not just that, Indian students account for 30% of the total international students in Canada, at just over 217,000 as of 31st December 2021. This new move will allow airlines of Canada and India to better respond to the needs of the Canada-India air transport market. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says that faster and easier movement of goods and people between the two countries will facilitate mutual trade and investment. Indian Airlines, through this agreement, will now be able to have unlimited access to Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton, and 2 more additional points to be selected by India.
As Canada and other wealthy countries scramble to hire nurses from overseas, there have been growing concerns that the current ways of recruitment of healthcare workers from developing countries will soon force their medical systems to the brink of crisis. The Canadian government and provinces are spending millions of dollars to entice foreign-trained nurses to come and work in Canada, using overseas hiring campaigns, priority immigration pathways, and monetary grants to individual nurses. Canada is facing strong competition from Europe, the US, and other countries, also performing aggressive recruitment campaigns, advertising high wages and immigration opportunities. For example, healthcare workers can obtain cheap UK visas, while the Australian state of Victoria offers relocation packages for foreign nurses, equivalent to as much as 11,670 Canadian dollars. In Canada, internationally educated healthcare workers make up about 9% of nurses and 26% of physicians. Over the past year, provinces have rolled out a hodgepodge of incentives to recruit even more nurses, including targeted immigration streams. Newfoundland and Labrador have set up a recruitment desk in India. Saskatchewan will hold a healthcare job fair later this month in the Philippines, and British Columbia, New Brunswick, Manitoba, and Quebec all offer thousands of dollars to cover licensing for international nurses and other costs, which can include childcare, transportation, and living expenses. These kind of incentives are hard for nurses from developing countries to turn down, and losing 1 or 2 specialist nurses from those areas can mean the end of that service completely. The chief executive officer for the International Council of Nurses said in a statement that wealthy countries, including Canada, are in a rush to get a quick fix to their own nursing shortage because they haven't invested enough in educating their own nurses, and because the nurses that they have, in many cases, are exhausted and burnt out. Early in the pandemic, a joint report from the INC and the World Health Organization warned of rich countries raiding developing countries' nurses workforce to make up for their own failure to train and retain the healthcare staff they need. According to that report, the Americas had about 83 nurses per 10,000 people, while in Africa, for example, there were less than 9 nurses per 10,000 people. 2.5 years and one global pandemic later, it seems the situation has only worsened for lower income countries, struggling to hold on to their healthcare workers as wealthy countries ramp up recruitment. In a statement, Health Canada says it welcomes open dialogue with different levels of government, healthcare workers, and others to address the healthcare worker shortage and ensure ethical international recruitment.
And it drops again. The minimum comprehensive ranking system score has dropped to 491, the lowest since the post-pandemic resumption. On November 23rd, Canada held its most recent all-program express entry draw. This is the 11th draw since all program draws resumed on July 6th. This time, IRCC sent invitations to 4,750 candidates with minimum CRS score of 491. The invitations to apply in this draw is the same as the previous two on November 9th and on October 26th. The CRS score is continuing to drop by 2 or 3 points with each draw. On November 16th, IRCC introduced the National Occupation Classification System. The new system has brought 16 new occupations that are now eligible for express entry. The introduction of the new 16 occupations aims to target sectors in which Canada is currently facing labor shortage, such as tech, healthcare, and truck drivers.
Is that a glimmer of light in this Canada-US Nexus dispute? The CBSA, Canada Border Services Agency, and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the CBP, seem to be on their way to a resolution by exploring short-term measures to resume reducing the backlog of Nexus applications after claims that the Nexus Fast Traveler program has been held hostage by the U.S. in an effort to renegotiate the 20-year-old agreement. For those who do not know, Nexus is a Canada-US program designed to help speed up the cross-border travel for low-risk Canadians by land, air, and sea. The pilot, which began in late September at the Thousand Islands Bridge crossing between Ontario and New York, allows Nexus applicants to be interviewed by a CBSA officer on Canadian soil before crossing the border to sit down with a US CBP officer, while they'll be interviewed, photographed, and fingerprinted. This is a drastic change from how Nexus interviews in both countries used to be traditionally conducted. Normally, applicants would have a sit-down, in-person interview conducted jointly by the CBSA and the CBP officers. Interviews at Nexus enrollment centers in the U.S. have been open since April, while the 13 enrollment centers in Canada, jointly staffed by Canadian and U.S. officers, have remained closed since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. This is because Customs and Border Protection won't send U.S. agents to staff the centers without being guaranteed the same protection they enjoy on U.S. soil, a condition the federal government in Canada considers a non-starter. Canada's Public Safety Minister has remained firm that U.S. Customs officers cannot have the same legal protection at Nexus enrollment centers as they do at Canadian pre-clearance halls, adding, "We want to be pragmatic, but we want to adhere to important Canadian principles, and one of them is that Canadian laws applies on Canadian soil. Also, U.S. Customs officers at Nexus centers aren't entitled to the same legal protections they have at airports and the border." An official from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security says Canadians will have to either travel to U.S. Nexus enrollment centers or the U.S. border to be interviewed before they can obtain a Nexus card. Please note, existing Nexus members whose card is about to expire can continue to use a travel document for another 5 years, provided they have submitted a renewal application online. A spokesperson for the CBSA shares, the CBSA and USCBP are actively exploring the expansion of this pilot to additional locations along the border where demand and capacity are greatest.
What if your own company transfers you to work in Canada? Well, it is possible through Intra-Company Transfer Program, that is ICT. If you work for a multinational company that has a branch, subsidiary, or affiliate in Canada, you may be able to secure a Canadian work permit under Intra-Company Transfer Program. ICT is an immigration pathway under International Mobility Program that allows foreign business owners to transfer their businesses to Canada and acquire a work permit. There are several benefits of the Intra-Company Transfer Work Permit Program. Now let's put some light on some of the key benefits. Benefit number 1. You can live and work in Canada. Not just that, your spouse can also work in Canada during your employment period, and your kids can also attain study permit and go to Canadian public schools for free or nominal fees. Benefit number 2. No language test is required. You can obtain a work permit to work in Canada without taking any English or French language proficiency test. Benefit number 3. Access to free healthcare. Healthcare is provided by the government for free medical health coverage after 3 months of work in Canada. Benefit number 4. You can reside in your home country if you wish. You don't have to stay in Canada on a full-time basis. Benefit number 5. Business opportunities. You can have an access to Canadian and US markets if you want to expand your business. You can also have a stable and secure banking system, financial capital, and a lot of business opportunities. Last but definitely not the least, benefit number 6, permanent residency. After your 3 years of stay in Canada with a temporary work permit, you will be eligible to apply for Canadian permanent residency. And after getting PR, you can even apply for a Canadian citizenship, which is the most desirable passport in the world. In order to be eligible for intra-company transfers, you must fall into one of the 3 qualifying job positions: executive and senior managers. Primarily direct the management of the enterprise or a major component thereof. Senior manager. Manage all or part of the enterprise and supervise the work of other managers or professional employees. Functional managers. Manage a function that is essential to achieving the company's goals, but do not necessarily manage employees. Demonstrate specialized knowledge, which in turn means knowledge at an advanced level of the enterprise's products, services, processes, and procedures. You must have at least 1 year of full-time work experience with the foreign enterprise and come to Canada to perform comparable work to be eligible for the pathway. To be eligible, companies need have a parent, subsidiary, branch, or affiliate relationship. Prove that 2 enterprises are doing businesses. This means they are providing goods and services on an ongoing basis. The company must be operational in Canada. They cannot just have a physical location in Canada. Intra-company transfer permits are eligible for 3 years. After that, it is possible to renew for up to 5 years for specialized knowledge holders and 7 years for executive and senior managers. Canada is a country with a strong multicultural society. For a long time, Canada has been the top choice for immigrants to start a new and promising life. Several work permit programs such as intra-company transfers have proved to be a great pathway to permanent residency. For more information related to intra-company transfer program, please visit canada.ca. That's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you really like this video, then please support us by subscribing to our My Consultant YouTube channel. For more information on the topics covered today, you can visit our website myconsultant.ca, where you can also find an authorized immigration and citizenship consultant. I am Tina Batra.
And I'm Tashina Thompson, and we'll see you next week.
Happy